Hello and welcome to this short, mostly unscripted video following the build of my Bandai Perfect Grade Millennium Falcon. I got this kit well over a year ago, but I finally got round to building it last Christmas. This video is mostly just a time-lapse I had recorded, and I'll only be making some small comments on some of my processes throughout the build. So you're lucky, I won't be talking for most of this video, and you'll get to hear some really bad music I made many years ago. Now, a photosensitivity warning. This video is mostly made from fast-moving and jittery time-lapse footage of varying capture rates. If you are sensitive to such videos, best hit stop. I don't want to be responsible for anyone becoming ill. Anyone familiar with this kit will know that it is a beast. There are hundreds of parts. I should have taken some photos beforehand, but I didn't. I started off with painting the figurines, knowing I had to get the internals done first. I also knew that this was going to be internally lit, so I wanted to make sure it all lights up correctly and masked off the light as best as I could. I also didn't quite fully follow the guide in terms of how to do the electronics because I added a little bit of extra lighting here and there. Not a huge amount, but enough to be just a little bit different. And yes, that's me eating cheese biscuits. This is one of the extra lights I added that wasn't in the kit. I just grabbed a 3mm LED, drilled a hole and wired it through the mandible. I also painted the engine exhausts before I attached them to the model. Again, like with some of the other internals, I also did the pit internals first, painted them. I didn't quite follow the original colour scheme. I went for a more dark and dirty engine look rather than the almost matte white finish that I think the studio model had originally. And I was also doing some changes to the internal electronics. I didn't use the original battery box that came with it, and I will still add my own battery at some point, but I haven't at the time of the end of this video. This was to account for the extra lighting that I added inside. Because I was adding extra lighting to the kit, I didn't want to use the original battery box, so I had to create my own little circuit, and I'll sort myself out with the new power supply. After putting most of the kit together, I started putting on all the greebles, and there were plenty of them. It took me a long time to get this done. All in all, this kit has taken me about 3 months to actually put together, but I probably could have got them done in about 2 or 3 weeks, but that's only if I was really focusing on doing it full time. I masked up the engine pits and then I gave it a general primer. I then mixed up a base colour and used my airbrush to give the whole model a base coat. I went with a duck egg blue sort of look. This is a very close to grey colour and seems to be a favourite with a lot of Industrial Light and Magic models that they use throughout the years, including Star Trek. I also took a lot of time masking up all the panels, and I started off with a slightly over-contrasted panel colour, but I did correct that a little bit later by giving a thin coat of base colour just to sort of take the contrast down a little bit. Like the pits and some of the internals, I also pre-painted the landing gear. It was around this time I discovered that my painting was a little heavy on the contrast, so I thinned down some of the base coat and then just lightly went over everything with the base coat to just bring that contrast down a little. Because I was painting in my panel colours and wasn't using the decals, I then used the decals as reference to repaint all the scratched and scraped off paint marks. And I had my base coats all painted and ready to receive all the decals. When Storm Kara hit, we had a power cut, and that's when I actually started to do the decals in candlelight because I had nothing else to do at that time. And once all the decals were applied, I gave the whole model a couple of coats of a clear coat paint. I think it was from Tamiya. This sealed all the decals and the paint and allowed me to apply all the dirt and then safely wipe away if I made any mistakes. I mixed up a dirty sort of pigment using some blacks and browns, and then I really super heavily thinned that down with water. Using a normally wet brush with just some clean water, I went over all the panel lines and some of the details in the model. I then essentially drip fed some of the paint into this water, which it then used the surface tension of the water to pull the pigments into the corners of the models, and it brought out all the detail as well as applying a nice dirt layer to everything. In CG, we will call this ambient occlusion or the dirt pass. We usually would capture ambient occlusion onto a texture map, which we can then take into something like Photoshop to add more details if we wanted to. And generally speaking, this is usually done to help highlight the details of the model, as well as set some realism, as nothing is perfectly clean. And obviously, as there's so many details, this took quite a long time. I then mixed up some very dark grey and then got busy with the airbrush, adding smoke stains and scorch marks. With the airbrushing out the way, I then needed to add the water staining, where the water had rusted into the metal and formed streaks across the model. This is seen quite a lot all over the studio model as well. That little bit of masking tape is actually just holding down one of the little plastic pipes, which I accidentally snapped while wiping away the water and then glued back together. Hopefully with it now being glued, it should be fine. With all the water staining done, I was very close to being finished, but for a mistake that I made pretty early on. When I was masking up the model, I forgot to mask up one of the panels on the canopy, which was really stupid of me. Luckily it was on the inside, but I had to scrape off that paint and it obviously scratched up the inside. Luckily, I was able to buff it out with some K20 Ultra Cut and then polish it back. It's not perfectly optical clear, but it's good enough and certainly hides most of the damage, thankfully. And here are some photos of the finished model. Firstly, showing off the lighting.
Out of the cradle, endlessly rocking, throwing myself on the sand, confronting the waves. Silent with bright eyes.
I then took the model outside for some proper photos.
Silent with bright eyes. Up from the mystic play of shadows, twining and twisting as if they were alive. From your memories, sad brother.
As always, thank you very much for watching this video. If you like what you see here, check out my other videos on my other projects and please consider subscribing. If you want to help support me, please check out my GoFundMe in the description. Any donations you give go straight into funding supplies for my projects. Thank you again, stay safe, take care and goodbye.